And before you even realize what's happening, Landman, Season 2, Episode 8, quietly pulls the ground out from under every character you thought was standing on solid footing. This is the episode where denial finally cracks, where loyalty starts to feel dangerous, and where doing the right thing might be the worst possible choice.
Next time on Landman.
Episode 8 isn't loud, it's heavy. And that's exactly why it's so good. Episode 8 opens with a strange sense of calm, and that calm is deeply unsettling. After everything that came before, you almost expect chaos, but instead the show slows its breathing. Tommy moves through this episode like a man carrying weight he refuses to name. He's present, he's functioning, he's even making decisions, but you can feel the distance between what he's doing and what he knows. This is where the episode immediately stands out. It's not about sudden disasters, it's about the quiet moments where disaster becomes unavoidable. Tommy keeps telling himself there's still time, still options, still a way to fix things without breaking anyone's trust. And the show makes it painfully clear that this belief is the lie holding everything together. His faith, not religious but personal, faith in himself, in the company, in Cammy, is being tested from the inside. Every conversation feels loaded. Every pause feels intentional. People speak carefully around him, not because they're afraid of him, but because they sense he's already close to the edge. What makes this episode so strong is how much it trusts the audience. It doesn't spell things out. It lets silence do the work. You see it in Tommy's eyes when numbers are mentioned. You hear it in the way he reassures people too quickly, too confidently. He's not calming them down, he's calming himself down. And that tension, that gap between reality and belief, drives the entire episode forward. This is also where the theme of inevitability really settles in. The show isn't asking whether things will go wrong anymore, it's asking how long they can pretend they won't. Episode 8 understands that the most terrifying moments aren't when everything collapses, but when everyone agrees to keep standing under something that's already falling. By the end of this first stretch, you don't feel shocked, you feel warned, like the episode is quietly telling you that whatever comes next isn't an accident. It's the result of every choice Tommy is making right now, especially the ones he refuses to admit are choices at all. What episode 8 does next is strip away the illusion that anyone in this world is operating from a place of safety. Every character is cornered, whether they admit it or not, and the episode takes its time showing how pressure changes people. Rebecca, in particular, carries a quiet intensity throughout this hour that feels heavier than anything we've seen from her before. She's still sharp, still professional, still outwardly composed, but the fear she tried to bury in the previous episode hasn't gone away. It's matured, it's turned into awareness. She now understands that the system she trusted, the logic she believed would protect her, won't hesitate to crush her if it needs to. Every room she walks into feels colder. Every conversation feels like it could be used against her later. And what's heartbreaking is that she isn't paranoid. She's right. The episode makes a point of showing how quickly people shift once survival enters the equation. Allies become cautious. Support turns conditional. Rebecca realizes she's no longer fighting a single problem, but an entire structure that doesn't care about intent, only outcomes. Meanwhile, Nate continues to move exactly how we expect him to, quietly, efficiently, and without emotional attachment. Episode 8 reinforces that Nate isn't cruel, but he is precise, and precision can hurt more than anger ever could. He doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't threaten, he simply explains consequences as if they're weather patterns, unavoidable and indifferent, and that's what makes him dangerous. He doesn't believe he's doing anything wrong. He believes he's doing what must be done. The episode uses Nate as a reminder that systems don't need villains to destroy people. They only need rules and someone willing to enforce them. As all of this unfolds, Charlie's earlier optimism starts to look less like confidence and more like recklessness. The romanticism he attached to risk now feels almost childish when placed next to the reality Rebecca is facing. Episode 8 doesn't vilify him, but it does expose the gap between loving the idea of danger and living with its consequences. And through all of this, that Tommy remains the center of gravity. Everyone's decisions orbit around what he will or won't do. The problem is that Tommy still believes silence is protection. He convinces himself that withholding the full truth from Cammy is an act of love that sparing her fear somehow spares her pain. But the episode makes it painfully clear that this silence isn't neutral, it's active. It's shaping the future in ways he refuses to look at directly. Every time he chooses reassurance over honesty, the cost grows. You can feel it in the way Cammy looks at him, with complete trust, with belief so strong it almost feels tragic. She sees a version of Tommy that no longer exists, a man who can fix things if given enough time. Episode 8 lets that trust linger just long enough to make you uncomfortable, because you know exactly what it's built on. Not truth, but hope. And hope in this world is a fragile thing. The episode doesn't rush toward a confrontation. Instead, it tightens the net slowly. Conversations overlap in meaning, small details echo earlier warnings. You start to realize that every character is operating with incomplete information, and the only person who could connect the dots is the one choosing not to. That's what makes this episode so suffocating. It isn't about a single bad decision, it's about a pattern, a cycle of delay, denial, and rationalization that keeps repeating because facing the truth would require admitting that some losses can't be prevented. By the time this section of the episode settles, the tension isn't screaming, it's humming, and you know that once it finally breaks, it won't be gentle. Episode 8 reaches its most uncomfortable territory when it forces Tommy to confront the difference between responsibility and control. For so long, Tommy has believed that carrying the burden meant he was protecting everyone else. If he absorbed the stress, the fear, the uncertainty, then maybe the people around him could keep moving forward without breaking. But this episode dismantles that belief piece by piece. It shows how responsibility without honesty becomes manipulation, even when it's unintentional. Tommy isn't lying outright. He's editing the truth, and the more he edits, the more isolated he becomes. You can see it in the way the conversations start to drift past him. People speak, and he hears the words, but his mind is already working on how to contain the damage instead of addressing the cause. The episode frames this as a kind of quiet erosion. There is no single moment where Tommy makes the wrong choice. Instead, there's a long series of small decisions that all point in the same direction, away from reality. And that's what makes it so tragic. He genuinely believes he's buying time. But time isn't neutral here. Time is making the situation worse. The longer the truth stays buried, the heavier it becomes, and the more destructive it will be when it finally surfaces. This is also where the episode's sense of inevitability becomes almost suffocating. You will start to notice how often characters talk about the future as if it's already written, not in dramatic speeches, but in subtle language choices. Phrases like, "when this is over" and "once we get through this" keep appearing, even though no one can clearly explain how that will happen. The show is deliberately highlighting how people use imagined endings to avoid dealing with the present. Cammy especially clings to this idea of a future where the company survives and becomes something meaningful again. Her faith in that outcome is unwavering, and that's what makes it so painful to watch. She isn't naive. She's hopeful, and hope, in this context, becomes a liability. Tommy feeds that hope not because he wants to deceive her, but because admitting the truth would mean admitting failure. Not just professional failure, but personal failure. It would mean accepting that he cannot save what was already broken long before he stepped in. As the episode progresses, the pressure begins to show in physical ways. Tommy looks tired in a way sleep can't fix. His movement's slow, not because he's calm, but because he's carrying too much. The show uses these details to underline what words can't fully express. This isn't just stress, it's moral exhaustion. He's worn down by the constant calculation of who needs to know what and when. Every interaction becomes a risk assessment, and the tragedy is that the people he's trying to protect are the ones being most endangered by his silence. The episode doesn't judge him harshly for this. Instead, it invites the audience to sit in his discomfort to understand how easy it is to confuse control with care. That empathy is what makes the coming consequences feel earned rather than cruel. Galliano's presence in this episode, even when he's not on screen, looms large. His earlier words echo in the background, reminding us that some systems don't recover, They just persist until someone finally admits they're dead. Tommy avoids that truth with every ounce of energy he has. But the episode makes it clear that avoidance has a cost. Each time he delays, he pushes himself closer to a moment where choice disappears entirely. That's the real danger episode 8 is building toward. Not a sudden catastrophe, but a point of no return where options vanish and consequences arrive fully formed. By the end of this section, the tension has shifted from external threats to internal collapse. The danger is no longer just financial or professional, it's psychological. Tommy is cracking under the weight of a role he was never meant to carry alone. And the most unsettling part is that he still believes he can hold it together just a little longer. Episode 8 becomes truly devastating when it stops asking whether Tommy can fix the situation and starts asking whether he's already too late. This is where the episode's emotional weight fully settles in, not through shock or confrontation, but through realization. The cracks that have been forming all season are now impossible to ignore. Tommy begins to sense that the role he's been playing, the fixer, the shield, the man who absorbs impact so others don't have to, is no longer sustainable. Yet even here, he hesitates. What makes this section so powerful is how clearly the show illustrates the trap he's built for himself. Every person around him is acting based on the version of reality he's allowed them to see. Cammy believes in him completely. Rebecca believes the worst has passed, even if she's still cautious. Charlie believes risk will eventually reward courage. And Tommy knows deep down that none of these beliefs are fully grounded in truth, but instead of correcting them, he carries them like obligations. Their faith in him becomes another weight on his shoulders. Admitting the truth now wouldn't just change plans, it would shatter trust. And Tommy is terrified of being the one who breaks that illusion. The episode uses this fear to explore a harsh idea that sometimes protecting people from pain doesn't prevent harm. It delays it until it becomes unbearable. Tommy's silence is no longer just avoidance. It's actively shaping the outcome. Every delay locks the future into a narrower path. The show makes this clear by removing any sense of flexibility from the narrative. Meetings don't feel like opportunities anymore. They feel like formalities. Decisions are made before anyone even sits down, because the real choices were missed earlier. This is where the tension becomes almost unbearable, because the audience can see the ending forming while the characters are still pretending there's room to maneuver. Episode 8 doesn't rush this realization. It lets it sink in slowly, scene by scene, until it becomes impossible to ignore. Cammy's trust is the emotional core of this section, and it's what makes everything hurt so much more. She speaks about the company with genuine belief, not just as a business, but as something that still holds meaning, something worth saving. To her, it represents continuity, legacy, and a way forward after loss. Tommy listens, and you can see the conflict tearing him apart. Telling her the truth would mean taking that belief away. It would mean admitting that the thing she's holding on to might already be gone. The episode doesn't frame Cammy as fragile or incapable. Instead, it shows how cruel it can be to underestimate someone's ability to face reality. Tommy assumes the truth would destroy her, but what he's really protecting is himself. He's protecting his image as the man who can still make things right. Episode 8 quietly suggests that this self-protection, however human, is the most dangerous thing he's doing. Meanwhile, the consequences Rebecca feared continue to close in, even if they haven't fully arrived yet. The danger she sensed hasn't disappeared, it's just become less visible. The episode makes it clear that systems move slowly but relentlessly. Paperwork, procedures, and delayed reactions are all part of a process that doesn't care about intentions. Rebecca understands this now, and there's a sadness in her acceptance. She's no longer panicking, she's preparing. That shift is chilling because it shows how far things have progressed. Panic implies uncertainty, preparation implies expectation, and what she expects isn't good. The episode contrasts her growing clarity with Tommy's continued denial, highlighting how awareness and avoidance can coexist in the same space, pulling people in opposite directions. By the end of this section, Episode 8 has transformed from a story about managing crisis into a meditation on accountability. It asks a brutal question without ever stating it outright. At what point does trying to save something become the reason it collapses? Tommy is standing on that line now. You can feel it in every interaction, every silence, every decision not made. The episode doesn't offer relief. It doesn't hint at a last-minute solution. Instead, it lets the weight of inevitability settle fully. This isn't about whether the truth will come out, it's about how much damage will be done by the time it does. And that realization hangs over the rest of the episode like a shadow, dark, heavy, and impossible to escape. The final stretch of episode 8 doesn't aim for resolution. It aims for clarity, and that's what makes it so unsettling. By this point, the episode has stripped away almost every comforting illusion, leaving the characters exposed to truths they can no longer outrun. Tommy, especially, reaches a point where exhaustion gives way to something quieter and more dangerous: acceptance. Not acceptance of failure, at least not openly, but acceptance that the path he's on cannot change without costing him everything he's been trying to protect. The episode frames this as a moment of stillness rather than action. There's no dramatic outburst, no sudden confession. Instead, there's a heavy understanding that settles into Tommy's posture, his expressions, the way he listens more than he speaks. He knows now that every option left to him involves loss. The only question is who will bear it. This is where the episode's title sentiment truly earns itself. Episode 8 is so good because it refuses to comfort the audience. It doesn't rush to reassure us that honesty will fix everything or that courage will be rewarded. It presents a harsher truth. Sometimes the damage is already done, and the only meaningful choice left is how honestly we face it. Tommy's earlier belief that silence could buy time is fully dismantled here. Time hasn't been his ally, it's been the force that solidified the consequences he was trying to avoid. The episode doesn't condemn him for this. It treats his struggle with empathy, recognizing how deeply human it is to cling to hope even when evidence suggests otherwise. But empathy doesn't erase accountability. And episode 8 makes it clear that understanding why someone made a choice doesn't lessen the impact of that choice. Galliano's words finally come into focus during this stretch. Not as a threat, but as a diagnosis. The company didn't slowly die because of bad luck or a single disaster. It died the moment it became something people were afraid to acknowledge as broken. Tommy has been fighting that reality all season, not out of greed or ambition, but out of loyalty. Loyalty to Cammy, to the memory of what the company once represented, and to the version of himself who believed he could hold everything together. Episode 8 shows how loyalty, when taken too far, can become a form of self-destruction. The tragedy isn't that Tommy failed, it's that he tried to succeed at something that no longer existed. What makes the ending of this episode linger is the absence of relief. There's no emotional release, no clear villain to blame, no victory to cling to. Instead, there's a quiet sense of finality. The danger Rebecca sensed hasn't vanished. It's simply changed shape. The pressure hasn't lifted. It's shifted, now resting squarely on Tommy's shoulders in a way that can't be ignored. The episode leaves him standing at the edge of a truth he can no longer delay, and the audience knows what that means. The silence he's maintained will not protect Cammy. It will hurt her more deeply than honesty ever could. And the longer he waits, the more devastating that realization will become. Episode 8 ends not with an answer, but with a warning. It tells us that faith, when placed in the wrong hands or the wrong moment, can be dangerous. Faith in systems, in people, in ourselves. Tommy's faith has carried him this far, but it has also blinded him. And now, with no easy way forward, he's forced to confront the cost of that blindness. That's why this episode works so well. It doesn't rely on spectacle. It relies on truth. It trusts the audience to feel the weight of what's coming without being told how to feel. And as the screen fades, one thing is painfully clear. Whatever happens next isn't about saving the company anymore. It's about whether Tommy can finally face reality before it destroys what's left of him.